but there might be. So if we're meeting at a coffee shop, I might ask you questions. So what's going on? How's the job? How's the work? How's the family? How's the kids? And after a while, after a while of them talking, they're going to feel this compunction usually to say, how about you? Right? You understand? If I ask somebody enough questions about them, they're going to start asking questions about me.
Yeah.
Now that's different, right? I'm answering their question about what's going on. That's what I meant by that.
So keep the answer to a couple minutes.
Well, it would be better if because it all depends on whether or not, if it's a coffee and they're settled in, they've got an hour and they want to chat, you could go longer. But the way most people are, getting them, for 5 minutes or 10 minutes is sometimes, a challenge.
Yeah.
Ways to lead generate. I made a list. Notice ex-spouses is on the list. And I oftentimes ask, how many of you have sold a house to an ex-spouse? There we go. Almost always a hand goes up, right? So just, I'm just saying, everyone you know and everyone you meet, open houses, gyms, personal trainers, running clubs, charities, anything you could do, places of worship, networking groups, door knocking, farming in the area, everywhere that you could. So I actually oftentimes ask people, what do you like to do? Do you like to do anything? I've had agents that did well because one of them, she, I thought had I don't know, must have been a mental breakdown because in her late 50s, she decided to run marathons. Now, this is not a woman that ever went to the gym, right? You understand? She was not into fitness, and she decided to run marathons. And in Los Gatos, where I'm from, a bunch of insane people get up every morning, Saturday morning, and meet at 7 o'clock. And there's this long trail where they all run, hundreds of them run every morning. She's doing business from people she meets running marathons. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. I have an agent that does quilting and meets people when she does. Apparently, it's a group activity. I'm not sure why, but apparently it is. Right? You understand anything, that pottery, cooking classes? You like to do anything. And the question is, could you do hiking? Could you do that in groups? Do people go and hike in groups? Do you have a pet? Right? Do people go to dog parks? And, one of the agents that I'm coaching, she got her first client because they had the same kind of dog she had. Now, this works both good and bad. But the reality is most people don't think there's any difference between one real estate agent and another. Most people don't think that real estate agents do anything that's all that complicated or different. You, what difference does it make? One agent is about the same as the other. Most people believe that. Now, that could be used to your advantage. You like dogs and they like dogs. Sometimes that's all it takes for you to be their agent. You're a member of the church and they're a member of the church. That's all that it takes. You like to run marathons, they like to run marathons. That's all that it takes. Something in common that they can relate to. It's all that it takes. Most of the time, they're not interviewing 10 or 12 agents, right? They like you, they met you. One guy was standing in the line at a store, in a sporting goods store, and got his first listing because it's just one thing in common. That's all that you necessarily need. So do you have a value proposition? If somebody said, I'm thinking about buying a house, what is your value proposition? Do you have one for selling listings? I remember going on a listing appointment and the owner said, this is when I was new, the owner said, give me 10 reasons why I ought to list my home with you. So I started,
What did you say?
Well, I remember that whatever it was, I said the fourth thing I said, he said, you've already said that. So by 4, I was repeating myself. So then I went and I wrote down 10 things, right? I wrote down 10 things. So that waiting for somebody to say, give me, whether I say all 10 or not, if somebody said, why should I let you represent me in buying a home? What is your answer? Why should I list my home with you? Right. Now I say I can show you ways of how you can save money when you're selling your home. Right. And I have a longer explanation for that. But generally, buyers want to save money. They want to be stress-free, buying and selling. They want to sell the home faster, sell a home for more money. Why should I hire you to sell or find my home? Why should I hire you? Right? You should have an answer for that. Good service is not a value proposition. I work hard is not a value
Are they
proposition.
gonna ask you, you say you could help them save the buyer's money, and then they could ask you, go back and ask you, how are you gonna help them save?
Well, if you're a buyer, how is it that you would normally get the best deal possible? And first of all, that would begin with having a strategy to get the good deal. And the strategy ought to involve, number one, you being exposed to the most properties that are potentially for sale that fit your criteria. Because the more you can choose from, the more likely you are to find the one that fits best for you at the best price. Would you agree with that? That if you saw more homes. So one of the things I'm going to do is expose you to homes that other agents are generally not going to expose you to. Have you ever heard of a HUD exchange? HUD exchange, ever heard of that? No, most people haven't. Well, that's an area where you might find distressed homes that are not available to the general public. You know what an NOD is, right? So I'm going to actually be exposing you to properties that normally you would not be exposed to. That's going to give you more of an inventory to choose from, more like, notice the default, right? And the HUD, anyhow, Google search it. So by the way, I just did a class on working with buyers. I think I have a recording of that, and I have a sample value proposition. Send me $5, I'll send you the link. Or maybe I'll send it to you.
Is the script I have a problem, I mean, answering impromptu?
Well, that's true. Most of us have problems. Some people are better on the fly talking. However, agents that go with me, and there's a group of agents that I work with that go with me on appointments. And one of the things they noticed is that I say the same thing every time, right? After like they've gone with me in 3 or 4 listing appointments, they're like, you say the same thing every time. Every time you say exactly the same thing. I say the same thing at open houses. I say the same thing to buyer every time. And it's not something I'm making up as I'm going along. I actually figured out in advance what am I going to say when they ask me this question. What you ought to do if you're working with buyers or sellers is start by making a list of every question you would ask if you were a buyer of an agent. Make a list of every question you would ask an agent if you're thinking of selling your home. Make a list of all the objections that you would give why you would not work right now or move forward with that agent. And then once you've made that list, now go back through it and ask yourself, what am I going to say when they ask me that? Now's the time to prepare. I think it was Machiavelli who wrote, in time of peace, prepare for war, right? So you ought to, and I think I have a thing coming up about planning, but do you have I think I'm going to be doing this. Okay. So do you have a time blocked schedule where you're going to be spending a certain amount of time on certain days to study the multiple listing service, read articles about real estate, and practice scripts? Practice scripts. Practice what you're going to say. I have a coaching program for agents, and it starts with what is your need or what is your economic goal? We make a business plan. We break that into weekly and monthly planning and tracking, and then we time block it. And there's an accountability built in. What was your goals? What were the results? How did it go? And remember the 80-20 thing, 80% of the things you could do is going to produce 20% of the money, and 20% of the things you could do is going to produce 80% of the money. That 20% is the part you want to make sure you get done. Right? That is not a to-do list. That is the must-do list. There's a metaphor called the big rocks. If you Google search the big rocks, you're going to see the guy has this big like plexiglass tank. He has a pile of big rocks, a pile of small rocks, a pile of sand, and a beaker filled with water. And what they tell people is you have to get all the stuff that's on that table into this plexiglass box. And there's only one way to make it fit, and that's to put the big rocks in first. And then when you put the big rocks in, the small rocks go around it, and then the sand goes around that, and then you can pour the water on. If you do it the other way around, it won't fit, right? In other words, these are the big rocks, the 20% of the activities that produce 80% of the income. What are those activities? Talking to people, having conversations, having appointments, showing property, writing offers, negotiating contracts, right? Those are the... So you might want to have a plan. I got 5 minutes. Can we do a plan? Would you like to see a plan? So the plan would be, what is your objective for the year? Let's say it's to do 12 transactions. That's not bad, right? So we'd write in 12 transactions. How many of those would you want to come from buyers, and how many of them would you want to come from sellers? So the 3 things we're going to focus on are buyers, sellers, and the third one is called the product. What's the product? You. You're the product. So that would mean practicing scripts, learning the market, attending classes. You're already doing that. So let's say buyers, if we want to do 12 transactions, what percentage of them do we think, how many of them are going to be buyers and how many of them are going to be sellers? By the way, in order to be sane, you're going to want 60% of your business to come from sellers and 40% to come from buyers. You'll be more sane if it's than the other way around. So let's say 8 sellers or 8 or 6 buyers. Let's just say 6 buyers, 6 sellers. That's 12. For now, we're going to do 50-50, and then the product. Now what we're going to do, remember this one is buyers. You don't have to have 5, but what are some ways in which we can meet buyers? Give me a way to meet a buyer.
Go to open house.
Go to an open house. What's another way to meet a buyer?
Talk to your neighbors.
Talk to your neighbors. Sphere of influence. Remember, 39% of buyers were referred by somebody. Sphere of influence. What's another way to meet buyers? Visit banks, lenders. What?
Going to events.
Going to events. What event could you go to where buyers might hang out?
Bars.
What?
Bars.
Bars. Homeless. You're the homeless guy in the bar. I can see you've got a target market. That's good. What? Mortgage days.
Home buyers.
Home buyer workshops. Are there? If you went to meetup.com, are there any investor workshops going on in San Francisco area? You think?
Yes.
Investor workshops. Are there any home fairs that are going on? Any home fairs?
First time home buyers.
Right. First time home. Right. So now you don't have to have 5, but you understand we're going to want to make a list. What are the things you're going to do to find buyers? What are the things you're going to do to find sellers? That's the next list. Well, sphere of influence could be the same, right? Can you meet sellers at open houses?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you meet sellers at events? Right. So you could have a geographic farm. It could be for sale by owners and expired. You could be working notices of default. You could be working target neighborhoods. Does everybody understand? The idea is to come up with, what are you going to do? And then for the product, do you do script practice? Yes. Not everybody, not of course. Yes would be a good answer. Do you do script practice? Do you attend trainings? Do you study the MLS? Do you preview homes? Do you preview homes? Do you go out and look at houses? How many houses that are on the market that would be a good deal could you describe to somebody right now and maybe even take them to go look at it? How many? And if the answer is none, you're not really in real estate. Right? You understand? If you're active in the business, you should know homes that are on the market. You should be able to talk about them.
Block parties.
Block parties.
We start to see a lot of that.
What's a block party?
Block parties where the one side of the street, 2 sides of or the other side of the street are blocked off, and the community residential.
The bar is in the street.
Well, they have that in the Hayden Ashford, but they also have it at the Sunset. They have one on Noriega, most recent.
Community events. Are there? Does everybody understand what I'm wanting you to do? Is to just ask yourself the question: what am I going to actually do? for buyers and sellers? And what am I going to do to make my product better? Now that we know that, the annual one I'm going to skip right now, but let's talk about a monthly goal. We're about to March. So in March, there's a difference between a lead and a lag indicator. A closed transaction is a lag indicator. Talking to people is a lead indicator. So we may not be able to predict closings in March because if they're not open now, they may not close in March. You understand? But what could we do? Could you have a goal for how many people you're going to talk to in March? Could you have a goal?
Yes.
Right, I'm going to talk to, what would be a goal? 200 people, 100 people, right? Your goal is your goal. Can you have a goal for how many open houses you're going to do in March? Could you have a goal for that? Say yes. Could you have a goal? I'm going to put together a buyer consultation. I'm going to put together a listing presentation. Could we make that a goal? So we could have activities and projects. I'm going to join the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to join a community. I'm going to go to a community event. I'm going to, right? We're going to make a list of activities and projects that you could do in March. Now we're going to ask ourselves, all right, week 1, I guess that's next week, I'm not really sure. What am I going to do in week 1? Now we're not going to do all 4 weeks, we're just going to start with week 1. I'm going to talk to 50 people. I'm going to get an open house. I'm going to get my database together, right? You understand? We're going to make a list of those things, and then when it comes to week 2, the question is, so your goal was to talk to 50 people in week 1. Did you talk to 50 people in week 1? And if you say, no, I only talked to 30, then what we either have to do is lower your goal or raise the number of contacts we're going to be making. Does everybody, one of the companies I work for, their program was set up so you couldn't change your goal. Do you know why they did that? Because the typical agent would want to lower their goal rather than increase their activities, right? But you guys aren't like that, are you? Right. And then we're going to modify our activities so that we're on track. An example. So this is also called a 1-3-5, 1 goal, 3 priorities, 5 specifics. Let's say you wanted to grow your database from 250 to 750. That would mean if you talk to 2 people a day, 5 days a week for 1 year, you would have added that many people. So we might say, this is what I'm going to do for the people that are in my database. I'm going to categorize them. I'm going to do a custom campaign. I'm going to make a social media plan. If I'm doing open houses, I could have a goal. I'm going to do 3 open houses a month. And I'm going to do that for a year. That would be 36 open houses in a year. I'm going to have a custom 8-week campaign for people I meet at the open house. My goal is to make 5 contacts from every open house. Now, if I do that, 3 a month, 36 times 5, that's 180 people I would have met just at the open house. Open house in a box is all the stuff I need. Things like hand sanitizers and batteries and toilet paper and flashlights and the flyers and other things that they could use. And a level 7 means, do you do 2 open houses or only 1?
A week?
A day. So this is another free tip. 2 open houses. Do the first one at 11 o'clock, Saturday or Sunday. This is a special secret open house just for the neighbors. So what we do, my flyer, by the way, says, are you a nosy neighbor? That's what it says. Are you a nosy neighbor? We're having a special open house at 11 just for the neighbors. We know you want to know what they did to the house. We know you want to know. You're welcome to come by at 11 o'clock. The owners will not be there. That's an important thing to say. There will be refreshments. And then what you do is you set up, like on an easel or on a big piece of cardboard, material that you would get of a pre-listing nature or information about that would be interesting to sellers about what's going on in that neighborhood. Where could I easily find graphs and charts about what's going on in a neighborhood that I could print out that look nice, that doesn't require me spending much money or doing any real work?
MLS.
RPR, somebody said. RPR. Right, the Realtor's Property Resource, right? So what's going on? So graphs and charts for sellers, we then take down that, by the way, so now we know the people that show up at 11, these are potential sellers. Because we only invited homeowners in the area that are likely to be able to sell their home. So we have packets for them, which are pre-listing type packets, information for somebody thinking about selling their home. Then at 1, the regular open house, the muggles, for those of you like here, show up, right? The regular people show up. And now we take down all of those and we put up things like school ranking reports and things that buyers would care about. Where would we get nice looking school ranking reports? RPR, right? Are there buyer presentation materials that you could easily get your hands on through Century 21? The answer is yes. There's a part of Century 21 called the Toolkit CMA, which also has buyer presentation materials, and Business Builder, which you also have access to, has buyer presentation materials.
What is RPR?
Realtors Property Resource.
Is that its own website or is it in the MLS?
It's in the MLS. There's a link in the MLS. If you type in nar.rpr.com, you will find it. But it's if you're a member of the Association of Realtors, you have RPR. You should check it out.
On the RPR, the information is not correct.
It's not as up to date as the MLS because there's a delay.
Yes.
However, they do have some off-market properties. And at this point, all we want are nice looking graphs and charts. We're not really, when the goal of doing all this is, what is the goal of an open house?
You have more potential listings.
What's the goal?
Lead generation customers.
Lead generation. Let me ask you this, is the goal of the open house to get the names, phone numbers, and email addresses of the people that come through?
Yes.
And the answer is no. I would say no.
Oh, really?
I would say no. That is not the goal of an open house. That is not the goal either.
Get more listings.
That's, well, eventually, but what is the goal of the open house?
Sell the house.
Well, they're probably not going to buy the house, right? So I probably wouldn't want to sell it to them because I don't even know if Any-
Potential.
to get an appointment. That's the goal of the open house, to set an appointment with somebody.
Lead generations doesn't qualify as that?
Lead generation is appointment setting.
Okay.
So for example, I have sign-in sheets, but I don't push them, right? Because when you walk into an open house and somebody says sign in, if you give them your phone number, what are they going to do? They're going to call you. Does the buyer want you to call them?
No.
At this moment? They just walked into the open house. So they want you to call them? No. If they give you their email address, what are you going to do?
Call them.
Spam them. Isn't that right? Do they want you to spam them? No. How many of you have seen that people sign in a way that you can't read? Or the words they're using for their email is probably not real, right? Because they wrote things that are probably not real email addresses, right? Because why should they? But let's say at the open house, eventually I get around to saying, well, are you working with an agent yet? No, not yet. Have you ever had an opportunity to meet with anyone and develop a strategy for how to get the best deal possible when buying a home in a market like we're in today? Have you ever done that? Had like a strategy session? How to get the best deal possible when buying a home in a market like we're in today? Have you done that? No. Well, are you serious about buying a house? Would you guys say you're serious about buying a house? Well, if you're serious about buying a house, the first thing we ought to do is we ought to have a quick meeting about the strategy on how to get the best deal possible when buying a house in a market like we're in today. Does that seem reasonable as a beginning point to have a strategy? They say, oh, yeah, great. Are weekdays or weekends better for you? Weekends, wonderful, Saturday or Sunday. Saturday, morning, afternoon, evening, what works for you? Morning, 9, 10, 11, which is the best time? Now, you understand, I'm not giving them a yes or no question. I'm giving them choices. They say 10 o'clock Saturday. Wonderful. Let me put you in the calendar. Now, are they going to tell me their real name as I'm putting it in my calendar? You think they'll now tell me their name? Probably. But if they're making an appointment to see me, they'll probably tell me their name. Right? And in order to make everything go quicker, I'm going to email you some information in advance. What's the best email to use? They'll probably give me their email. And just in case something comes up and I need to text you, what's the best phone number to reach you at? They'll probably give me their phone number. The goal of the open house is to get an appointment. It's not, now, if you get an appointment, you're going to collect their name and their phone number and their email address. But the goal is to get somebody to make an appointment with you.
the other thing that I started using is the Zap.
Zach,
Because on the Zap, you can basically hit contact, have them load their first and last name, email address, and as soon as you do that, you send them an email.
I make them type in. I bring my laptop and I
That's what
set
I
it up. And I tell them, I don't give them the disclosures or the reports. I tell them that I'll send it to them if they fill out the form.
But what I'm saying is on the Zap, once you hit save or whatever, it generates a message and their iPhone will ring if they get it.
Yes, Zap is a great program, right? I use it too, right? But yeah, so does everybody understand we want to maybe be a little more strategic? Prospecting for sale by owners and expired, that's something you could do. Vendor referrals, remember I talked about visiting the banks, there's other people. Do landscapers, are you supposed to know a landscaper?
Yeah.
Should you know a plumber? How about an electrician?
Yeah.
Should you know people that do house cleaning,
Yes.
moving services, right? So is it possible that those people could refer you business? I call somebody up and I say, hi, my name is Mike, I'm in Century 21. I'm putting together the preferred vendor list for my client database. I happen to need a good landscaper. According to the Yelp reviews, you're killing it in landscaping. Are you accepting new clients at this time? I've had people say no. I'm swamped. I had a guy quit. I got a big project. Great, fine, call another landscaper. Next one says, yes, I'm accepting new clients at this time. Wonderful, maybe we could work together. When your clients have real estate questions, do you have someone already that you refer them to? Sometimes they say yes. My brother's an agent, my sister's an agent, my mother's an agent.
So you just refer anybody?
No, we're going through people with good reviews. And we're going to keep calling them until we find somebody who wants to increase their business and doesn't have a networking relationship with a realtor already.
So how we find out they have good review?
You Yelp, I go through Yelp.
That, I heard some people just pay money to get good.
It's not that easy. If it were, I would have done it. If it was that easy, every real estate agent would have great reviews because they'd pay money. It's not easy. Believe me, I have my Yelp, I have a real estate school. And it varies because they hide or not, but I have like 120 5-star reviews. And believe me, that's not easy. I tried bribing them, it doesn't work. But what we're looking for is somebody that would refer business to us that we could refer business to. If you have a loan agent who you like and they've never referred anyone to you, get another loan agent. There are a lot of good loan agents. Right, you understand? How about this? We don't need vendors, we need partners. Isn't that what we're really looking for? Not just vendors, we're looking for partners. And that process of you getting your posse together, right? Who's going to do the inspections? Who's the kitchen remodel? Who's the tile person? Who's the landscaper? Who's the plumber? Electrician. So I met one of my agents that I was coaching. I had a listing in Gilroy. She wanted to see me do an open house. So I'm doing the open house, and this couple comes through. It was a bad day. Hardly anyone is coming through. They're not talking. Right? The husband won't say a word. The wife is not being rude, but that's about it. They're leaving the open house.
So question, when you go to events, you always wear the shirt of the business logo or
This,
what's your?
I usually do that, or I have a name badge.
Do you wear every day with the business logo?
Only when I want to make money. Only on the days I want to make money.
Yeah, then you, don't you think you want to make money every day?
Yes, so I usually wear it every day.
Okay.
So people,
Right?
yeah, people at the gym know that I'm in real estate. Right. So yes, every day you'd like to make money, you might want to wear something that lets people know you're in real estate. So anyhow, so they're walking out of the open house, right? Husband hasn't said a word. I say, so tell me, what do you folks do for a living? She points at him and she said, he's a plumber. And I said, a plumber? That's fantastic. I'm putting together a preferred vendor database for my clients, and I happen to need a good plumber. Is he any good? Right, that's what I asked her. Now he starts to laugh. She says, he's the best. I manage his plumbing business, and out of her purse comes her business card with her first and last name, email address, and cell phone number. 2 weeks later, we were in contract on another house. They were leaving the open house. But it turns out they were involved in a profession where we could be valuable to them. right? How many of those professions could you think of? Professional. By the way, agents call me up and they say, I have a client who wants to do investments. They don't know if they should flip or hold. What should I tell them? Are you a certified financial planner?
No.
Have you taken classes in investment analysis and financial planning? Then maybe you shouldn't be advising them. So would you need to know, should you know a CPA? Should you know a financial planner? Should you know, does everybody get the idea? Make a list of all those and you could work your own team, your own posse. And they refer business to you, you refer business to them. It would be good. This is a perfect work week as an example, things that you could block out. Green, I color coordinated because green is money, money-making activities, right? One of the questions I ask people, these are just some samples, but, and then it's not, let me say a few profound things about time blocking and schedules. It's not about selling real estate. It's about following a schedule. If it's not in your schedule, if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist.
What is green about?
Money. Anything that would produce money, I put it in green. Does your schedule reflect your goals? Does your schedule reflect your goals? And by the way, if you've time blocked, do you know what your job is as a real estate agent? To do what your calendar says you're supposed to do. That's your job. Do what the calendar says you're supposed to do. Plan your work, work your plan. Anyhow, that's it. I know I went on long, but we started slow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very strategic.